First of all, drawing is a language. It's more than what you see with your eyes, because to draw goes through your kinesthesia. So there's a whole language that is developing as I actually draw you with my body. And so for me, drawing brings us in a much deeper and more personal way. Stieglitz used to say, the great photographer, a portrait is as much a self-portrait as is it one of you. So I draw because it's a way of getting to know the world that you never know by just looking at it. It's an enterprise that is not just about picture making. It's about a whole zone of being that you set up and then live in it for as long as it holds my interest. In the beginning, it was because I had the first charismatic teacher of my life at the University of Illinois, named Lee Chesney. And he was a printmaker himself. And I walked into the graduate studio one day after he had first arrived and watched him engraving on a large copper plate, and I was hooked. I was in the Marine Corps. When I was in Korea, I was on the demilitarized zone, and that meant by day there was nothing to do. So I would be with my watercolors out wandering the hills, looking at one of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen in my life. I also was in Japan every week and visit Japanese museums, and I learned so much about composition from Japanese woodcuts. When I finished my time in the Marine Corps, I went up to Iowa and I asked where I could meet Lisansky, and I went into the print room and there he was, and I introduced myself and said that I had come to work with him. He said, well, the semester, you have to wait till next semester starts to enroll. He said, do you have any work with you? And I said, yes, I have a trunk full in my car. And he looked at my work for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. He arranged to enroll me that very day. And I became not only his student for 4 years, but ultimately I became his assistant. I am in Tucson because I had come back from a Fulbright grant in Italy in 1959 without a job, with a new baby and a recent wife. I was prepared to go into design work in Chicago when somebody called me from Arizona and said they had too many students and were looking for a drawing teacher. And could I please consider it? I said, would I consider it? I'll take the job sight unseen, and started work in 2 days at the University of Arizona.
Andrew Rush was my printmaking teacher in 1969 and 70 at the University of Arizona. Andy's work is humanistic. It reflects the problems of the world that we're living in. That is part of the history of printmaking.
When I first came out here, the art community was a fairly small, tight group. And the name Andy Rush always came up. He was just so well known that I guess I was expecting to feel very small in his presence. And he's such a welcoming person that it was very easy just to sit and chat with him.
Lisansky studied with a man named Hayter, and what Hayter brought into the United States was the print shop as a community space where printmakers come together to help each other make their prints. And now Andy has made the drawing studio in Tucson as a community space where printmakers, artists can come together, learn, and share their time together.
My fascination and experience with community is how come the drawing studio happened. I consider the drawing studio as a direct evolution from my experience both with Lisansky and with modern printmaking community studios. It's a good print.
I've known Andy since 2008. He is really a very, very masterful printmaker.
I came to the drawing studio specifically to be mentored by Andy. We have since developed, I think, a very close relationship, not of competition by any means, but learning from each other. And that's the beautiful part of printmaking.
I keep hundreds of sketchbooks, and as I do this, very often something starts occurring to me. I use 4 separate figures and then combine them with different colors and in different ways so they speak a little differently in different contexts. What's the future going to be about? It's going to be about anybody who can think of things from more than one point of view. And the only place I know that teaches that is the arts, especially the visual arts. And that the drawing studio is an effort to design an organization that addresses the learning of art in a way that can reach anybody who wants to start.
I was teaching drawing classes in my studio, and there were very limited places to learn drawing. And whenever a student showed up that came from Andy's school, it was apparent. They had skills and knowledge and an ability to work with the materials.
The professor artist Charles Littler, every Sunday morning we sat to talk about community and what it would take to find a way for artists to live together in a more compatible way with our children and our lives and continue to make art. Charles's wife, Cora, found an ad in the paper advertising an old dude ranch up for sale, 80 acres and 23 houses for $68,000. Can you believe it?
We got a group together from the U of A to buy this property in 1968. And the following year, Andy moved out here, and we've been here ever since. We've done many projects together, mostly murals and tile murals. We've had shows together here in the gallery. He switched to clay for a while. He worked on clay for probably 15 years or so.
In the middle of the 80s someplace, I noticed that the market for what I make, black and white etchings, was fading. Suddenly I had 4 kids in school at the time. I needed to find something. And at the time, my friend Fox McGrew here on my ranch, who's a ceramic sculptor, was teaching me how to make tile, how to make art tile. So I began to work in terracotta sculpture. Art is a language, and you learn it like you learn any language. You know, it has a grammar, it has a vocabulary, it has a context, it has a history. So it every bit as much needs to be learned like you learn to speak or you learn to write.